And we now take you live to Kathmandu, where the India Today Global Roundtable is in fact underway.
63 districts of Bangladesh were affected, all in a matter of 30 minutes. 170 plus people were killed. Now, that terror attack was linked to Jamaatul Mujahideen, Bangladesh in 2005. Cut to 2004, there's a module that's busted in Burdwan. There's a joint raid that's carried out in India, in Bangladesh. The National Security Advisor, Government of India, Ajit Doval, rushes to Bengal, and one module is busted. Why can't this, or can this be the template for the entire region? If you need to counter terror, you need to deploy your best resources and go for it.
Absolutely. I think one of the certainly success stories in the Indo-Bangladesh bilateral relationship during the past 6 years has been cooperation in the field of counterterrorism, and we had a good example of this the other day in addressing the incident that took place in Burdwan. Recently we had a team from Delhi visiting us, and what was manifestly clear was that cooperation on the ground is taking place. So for us, we have been pretty successful in the past 6 years in dealing with the problem of terror, in dealing with the JMB. But as we can see, terror is, it is rising again. And events in the Middle East.
Why can't this be the SAARC template? What happened between India and Bangladesh? Why can't this be the SAARC template?
Sure, this is on the agenda. And there is absolutely no reason why we can't breathe life into it. What perhaps many of the people in the room are not aware of is that under the SAARC counterterrorism protocol and the additional protocol, which incidentally was signed in the SAARC summit in Islamabad in 2004, the Home Ministers are meeting every year. The Home Secretaries are meeting every year on the subject of counterterrorism, as well as the Inspectors General of Police.
That's precisely my point.
But I think the people who are not meeting, who should be meeting, and I'd like to start with ISI and RAW, are the heads of the intelligence agencies, because they are the people who really have the information on the ground, which is perhaps the most relevant of all. The second point is, and I've been a strong advocate of this for a long time, is building mechanisms to underpin this cooperation. So even though we see Home Ministers and Home Secretaries meeting, what has been the tangible achievement on the ground?
We'll just come to that in just a moment. You've raised a very valid point that there are conventions that have been put in place, and Minister Rajal, 27 years ago you had the first convention on terrorism. After that you've had conventions on terrorism and additional protocols signed in 2004, 2007, 2012, whether it's in Dhaka or Nepal or Islamabad or Colombo. But what's the end result? It's a non-starter.
Actually, it's not a non-starter, but at the same time, we do not have a lot of achievements to so far. What we've been able to achieve in the last 29 years is to have a forum between and among nations that were not willing to talk to each other at some point of time, and at times were at wars, at times were harboring ill intention or to each other, but still there is a forum that will that's there. And most importantly today, as it stands, we are at a juncture where India can only benefit by uniting all SAARC nations, because India is the natural leader of the SAARC. And Pakistan does not have anything to gain by not being a part of SAARC, by not cooperating with the rest of the countries. And countries like Nepal have very important experience to share. We're coming out of conflict, have our own experience. That's going to that's going to be very useful for every country in the region because they all are facing the menace of terrorism and are trying to build democracy today.
Ambassador Jayasekara, in the Sri Lanka Convention on SAARC, the conversation was all about you can't use terror as state policy, terror in all form needs to be condemned. You've had several such conventions, but is this just rhetoric with no action on ground?
No, I'm going to stick to the topic which you say, because Sri Lanka is the best example for uniting South Asia against terror. Because we had the support, we suffered for 30 long years, and we had the support of all countries to end terrorism and bring peace in 2009. So we are not really worried about the conventions because we are a success story right now. So that's really what I want to emphasize, then rather than talking about all that. But we went through a very difficult time, as you know. We didn't have the support, I have to say, even though the SAARC countries always supported. However, once you say, for us, India is a friend, Pakistan is a friend, everybody is a friend. So that's where we have achieved that. So I really want to emphasize that, because among all the countries, we are the success story. So I really want to tell you that.
So, Manishankar Iyer, what's holding SAARC back from ensuring that India and Pakistan can deal with terror effectively?
I think there's an absence in South Asia of the recognition of terror as a common problem for all South Asian countries. And to put this in perspective, let us recall that we've had problems with Bangladesh with respect to the United Liberation Front of Assam, or Ahom, as they called themselves. We've had trouble with East Pakistan when, with respect to Mizoram and the rebels from Mizoram who took refuge inside East Pakistan. We have had problems, continuing problems, in Mizoram with support coming across the border from Myanmar, not the government of Myanmar, but elements there. I think Nepal has often been used as a transit route for terrorists to find their way into other parts of the country. I think we've had tremendous problems with terrorism in Sri Lanka as far as India is concerned, because after all, the IPKF went into Sri Lanka only in order to act as a buffer between the terrorists in the southern part of Sri Lanka who were attempting to overthrow the government and the terrorists in the northern part of Sri Lanka who were also dedicating themselves to the overthrow of the Colombo government. Pakistan is such a well-known story, it barely is worth repeating. But Afghanistan and Pakistan are also in trouble with each other because of terrorism that is either Afghanistan-based and takes place in Pakistan, or is Pakistan-based and takes place in Afghanistan. So there isn't a single country of South Asia, except perhaps lucky Bhutan, which at least up till now has not been part and parcel of this network, this cobweb of terrorism in which all of us are caught. And yet there is a complete absence of recognition that all of us are victims and that all of us have terrorists on our soil. After all, there's a huge number of terrorists in India who don't receive help from anywhere else. The ones in the heart of India, what we call the Maoists or the Nakshals, they don't get help from anywhere else, except it was rumored at one stage from the Maoists in Nepal. But the fact of the matter is that this is a South Asian issue, and it's not allowed to become a South Asian issue because every time SAARC meets, there are problems of bilateral relations.
Okay, and you've made that point.
I'm old enough in this game to remember that in the 1988 summit in Islamabad, all attention from SAARC was distracted because they wanted to know whether Rajiv Gandhi will meet with the King of Nepal.
Okay.
And the King of Nepal extended his stay, but Rajiv refused to meet him. The first round of foreign ministers' talks to set up SAARC was sabotaged by the Indian government, the Indian foreign minister refusing to see the Sri Lankan foreign minister.
Okay,
so
but on the issue
of a
terror.
South Asian consciousness
terror.
is the without this recognition of there being a common South Asian problem, we won't be able to unite to fight it. So instead of quarreling bilaterally, for God's sake, let us understand that this is a common problem for all of us,
And unless we have
But
a
for
common
27
approach
years,
to it,
we haven't
are
been able
not
to
going
understand
find
that
a
for
common
some reason.
solution.
And General Abbas, Hina Rabani Khar just said that 40,000 Pakistanis have lost their lives, military and civilian, in combating terror. Yet, both your neighbors, whether it's Afghanistan or India, have an issue saying Pakistan sponsors terror. Your best friend, your strategic partner, the United States, has problem in trusting you. Where is the problem, sir?
Well, you know, Pakistan is in this war along with the United States and Afghanistan since long. And it has learned the lessons also. The more you'll create political differences with your neighbors, with each other, the more space will be available to these kind of groups to thrive. And one good thing which has come up of late is Pakistan and Afghanistan setting a new trend by joining hands together on a course of, forming a mechanism to deal with this terrorism. One experience that we have gained in this is that you may blame Pakistan Army's past, but it has come a long way. And at present, when we see the institutions eroding or not up to the mark, the army is providing a very stabilizing, it's a stabilizing factor. Some external factors like US leaving Afghanistan at the peak created a vacuum, and look what happened to Iraq when the army was destroyed. Look what happened to Syria and Libya. So in case if you think that the army is a problem, I think it has come a long way. It is supporting the government.
No longer supporting terror, no longer supporting terror groups?
It is, in fact, it is reversed. It has gone into de-radicalization, it has gone into re-employment, it has gone into containment of these terror groups. And therefore you see these terrorist groups attacking Pakistan.
That's a big headline point you're making.
I think one thing which was missing, I personally feel that there was a lot which we achieved under composite dialogue. One component which did not work, which did not fail to deliver, was a joint anti-terrorism mechanism which was formed under composite dialogue. That's unfortunate. And I personally feel that there was no political will or resolve to push it forward. Now is the time, I think, this we can move forward like way we are doing with Afghanistan. Unless we do it and review it as a regional problem, I think this problem will expand itself.
Okay, let me get Meenakshi Lekhi to respond to that. Those are heartening words, if true, General, that the Pakistan Army appears to be mending its ways and no longer, sponsoring terror. Meenakshi Lekhi, is that encouraging?
No, absolutely not. In fact, the figures show a different story, and I'm going to read out a certain figures. The figure is that 5,379 terrorist-related fatalities have happened in 2013. 1,000 less than previous year. And in this year, if you check the numbers, 2,472 terrorists killed and 1,702 killed in 2013. So numbers have reduced because less terrorists have been killed. And further, the state forces, personnel getting killed in ambush are also reduced. And what has increased is the civilian mortality. So what is happening is, on the ground, that state-funded terrorism is prospering. State forces have taken their hands off in ambushing the terrorists, and because of which civilian forces are dying. And it is in this, civilians are dying. So I think that is what needs to be corrected so far as Pakistan is concerned. Because what Pakistan is trying to do is speak something and they never walk the talk. They say something else and act completely differently. I would want a person like General Atar Abbas to walk the talk, to counter terrorists in his own country, because they have created a Frankenstein and they are going to suffer.
Okay. General, since there's that question's been raised to you, you must respond to it before I go to Manishankar Iyer. The perception in India is that while Pakistan is battling terrorists in Waziristan, it's not doing that in Punjab.
Look, we have gone into Waziristan also. There were problems with the Americans, with the Afghans about the balance between the long-term interest and short-term interest. We never wanted to take an action which by effect would have gone or created an effect where the tribals would have gone against Pakistan, and that would have been very damaging for Pakistan. It has done, it has cleared. The figures speak for itself. Over 5,000 officers and soldiers have been killed in this war. The figure is about 50,000 civilians killed. The ratio of officer and Jawan is 1 per 12 Jawan, 1 officer per 12. It's a huge loss that the army has suffered in that. And because of dismantling and de-radicalizing the jihadi groups, they have attacked the army. They have attacked the chief, they have attacked virtually every VVIP. So it is incorrect, it is not a correct perception that when you blame that the army is doing the opposite. I think army is now in the line of fire and it is dealing with that. It needs assistance, it needs understanding, it needs facilitation. So that's what my answer to that
Can
is.
I add one line? One line, just one line. Pakistan today has achieved the dubious reputation of having more civilians killed than Afghanistan. So Afghanistan has improved its status, whereas Pakistan has come down several notches down.
Manishankar Iyer, you understand Pakistan so well. Does Pakistan army follow double standards? While it takes on terrorists in Waziristan, it refuses to target India-centric terrorists. And is India wrong in saying target Lashkar-e-Taiba, target Jaish-e-Mohammed?
I think the Pakistan authorities take a 1.5 standards. They are much more determined to eliminate terrorism from where it really hurts them extremely badly, which is the northwest of Pakistan. Insofar as the rest of Pakistan is concerned, I think we ought to understand that fighting domestic terrorism, even in its external aspect, is a very, very difficult process, which is why we in India have been attempting to fight terrorism in central India for decades and not succeeding. Where we have not succeeded, to expect the Pakistanis to prove their credentials by succeeding is, I think, asking for too much. What the government of India at the moment seems to be saying is that you end terrorism and we'll talk to you. And I'm saying, please talk to them so that you can work out ways in which joint mechanisms worked out under the dialogue that's already taken place, as well as the 1987 convention here in Kathmandu, that all these given substance. And I entirely endorse Farooq's suggestion a little earlier, that the heads of these intelligence agencies should meet. Indeed, I don't know why they're called intelligence agencies, because that's the one quality they lack.
But Ambassador, in a situation like this, the intelligence agencies should meet, and you know, the India-Bangladesh example is a perfect example of perhaps how the two intelligence agencies cooperated, how the two security forces cooperated, and something that was seen as a plot to destabilize the Sheikh Hasina government could be checked in time, at least parts of it. Is that possible at a bigger level, at a SAARC level, given the trust deficit?
Well, I hope, Gaurav, this isn't again going to turn into an India-Pakistan show. So let's see whether we can work together on this. And 3 points are worth mentioning. You know, one is SAARC is not necessarily the only platform or forum for such cooperation. You know, many people in the room may not be aware, but for the last 7 years, we've had 7 training programs for senior police officials from all the 8 SAARC countries, senior prosecutors, and judges dealing with cases of terrorism. This has been organized under the umbrella of the United Nations. I have been closely associated with this initiative from day one, and it's working well. There are 2 other very important initiatives on the table. One is the idea of a joint training academy in South Asia on counterterrorism, which will bring together all the relevant stakeholders. The 5 largest contributors to UN peacekeeping for the last 2 decades have been the 5 countries of South Asia. India, Pakistan, Bangladesh, Nepal, and Sri Lanka. So if we can cooperate in the area of peacekeeping, why can't we also cooperate in the area of counterterrorism? I have mooted for some time now the need for a South Asian counterterrorism and counter-radicalization strategy. Our Prime Minister has been very vocal on the subject. We need to set up a task force. It can be within the umbrella of SAARC. It can be outside the umbrella of SAARC. But let's move ahead and do something concrete.
Okay, but you've had systems in place, you've had a counter-terrorism monitoring cell in Colombo, and that hasn't had the desired results. It's a SAARC counter-terror monitoring cell where all information on terror attacks anywhere in SAARC region are supposed to be, assembled and then disseminated to all SAARC members. Also, modus operandi of terrorists, all of that, it appears to be a non-starter.
You know what? First of all, I have to make a request because I hope this is not going to be a continuation of the India-Pakistan earlier session. Because we, other countries, we don't want to get caught to the crossfire. I really want to say that. And let's stick to this, uniting South Asia. Because when we have a success story, like I want to really emphasize on that, where we share information, if we didn't. But having said that, it was 30 long years, like I'm 55, I've suffered 30 years of my life, I lost it. So we have suffered, so this is the time where we have to really unite, and have proper discussion, because terrorism is everywhere, it affects all of us. And it does not stop here, and even foreign soils are used. That is really what, there's more threats coming from there, like the diaspora, which we are facing. So I think sometimes we think it's really among us, the soils within South Asia, but it's far away.
Okay.
People who are like detached from the issues, but they want to create trouble. So we have to look at address those things.
Sure. Do we need one definition of terrorism, Minister Rajal? So far, we don't even have a definition of what is terrorism. One man's terrorist is another man's freedom fighter, even today.
That's one of the biggest problems we are facing today, because the UN Comprehensive Convention on International Terrorism has not been able to move forward because we cannot agree on the definition of
So let SAARC agree. SAARC is suffering so bad. Why can't SAARC agree that this is the definition, anyone who harms civilians, unarmed combatants, or something of that sort? Is that possible?
Of course, yes. But there are two or three dimensions to terrorism. We should be very fair, honest, and candid about it. Number one, mass killing of people, or killing of people, innocent civilians, with an intention to paralyze the state or intimidate a large number of people in the process.